So Sal, they were giving you a hard time about an Instagram comment on Trump's page.
Yeah, man. I mean, there was a lot of commotion. Honestly, dude, I was having a regular morning. One of my staff members is like, hey, she controls the Instagram. She's like, dude, you just got tagged. And I was like, tagged? And I was like, that must be something cool, right? Usually it is.
Right.
But it was not. Okay, this is crazy. You signed up for this.
I don't want to get too personal because, I don't want to put anything out there you want to put out there.
All right.
Good?
Time out? Yeah.
All right, so
I have to give you a little bit of credit for this.
Yeah, we can overdub it later. Just
I haven't had any crazy stories about. Oh wait, no, I do. I got robbed at gunpoint, mugged.
Checking for me, but I ain't checking for them. No.
sleazy real estate guys. But all right, so another episode of the EP podcast here with another guest interview. With me, I have a very, very interesting gentleman that I met at an interesting moment. He actually is a serial entrepreneur, I would call him. He has a lot going on. I think he could be doing a little bit more though, but he's been a great dude so far. I'm excited to unpack a lot of stuff with him in the next hour. But with me, I have the one and only Sal Rodriguez, the owner of La Bamba Ice Cream Shop in Kennett Square and also Cricket Cellular Services company. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Good.
Good to see you.
You
Good
too,
to
bro.
see you,
Thank you
man.
for having me on.
So, listen, we met in a very interesting way. I don't think I've met you in the way that I've met anybody else before.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we just start with that?
Yeah,
just so
for
people
sure.
know, how the hell are these two linked up? In case we have like mutual people that know us.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're going to see the thumbnail when I announce this episode and be like, how the hell are these two guys together, right?
Yeah.
So, I was going through social media one day, right? We're on social media all the time. You make content all the time. We make content. And, you end up doom scrolling from time to time. And I end up seeing in someone's story this Sal guy, right? They were giving you a hard time about what appeared to be an Instagram comment on Trump's page. Right. And it was, I think it was the hand clapping emojis over the post. And we could dive into what exactly that post is and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, this is interesting. And they weren't saying really nice things at all. I forget exactly what we're saying, but it wasn't anything good.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and I start going into the rabbit hole of it. I'm like, all right. I'm like, what's going on here? This dude is getting a lot of noise from the left, the right, but he's not saying anything yet. So I'm curious as to what's going on. Now, I'll be straight up honest with you. I felt for you, and I didn't know you at all. Like, we recently just met, and I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of when Arthur and we covered the political run last year, and we try to take a journalistic approach to it, where we try to be very in the middle. But no matter how much you do that, you'll get shit on either way.
Somebody's coming for you, for sure.
Either way. So I'm like, you know what? I'm curious about this. I'm curious. Let me reach out to this guy. I looked around at your stuff, and I'm like, okay, this guy's cool. This guy seems nice. Apart from what the people were saying, right? You try to look beyond the noise a little bit. I'm like, let me reach out to you. Before I did, it was like a day later, maybe. You did a podcast with I forget her name again. Remind me, what was it?
Marisol. Yep.
So and I was listening to it. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. This is clearly to address the whole situation. But I'm like, why don't we dive into it further? Let me reach out to him. So I reached out to you. I was like, Sal, hey, da 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 da. I saw this, that, and the other. I'd love to grab lunch with you one day, get to know you, and figure out what's going on here. And then we grabbed lunch. I'm like, dude, you were cool dude. Like, it was you, Victor, your editor, videographer, the whole night. I'm like, I don't get it. Right. So I said, you know what, let's get on the podcast and let's hash it out, for lack of a better terms. Right. So give me your side of it.
Yeah.
Before you do that though, sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good, man.
If you haven't already, like, comment, share, subscribe, turn on that notification bell for many, many more interesting conversations to come. And if you'd like to support us, please visit EP Podcast US, where you can shop some of our merch. So Sal, give me your angle to, I reached out to you. Give me what was going on beforehand.
Yeah, man. I mean, there was a lot of commotion. You know what I mean? Like, my feed You know, my DMs were packed with messages, you know, people tagging me, hey, what's going on, a bunch of stuff. And I'd seen you before, man, believe it or not.
Oh,
I'd
shit.
already seen your content. I was like, this dude's from Delaware. I was like, yo, he's got good stuff.
Appreciate
You
it.
know what I mean? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then I saw your message. I was like, I wonder what this is going to be about. I was like, I wonder how he's going to take everything, right? So I ended up, you know, opening the message. You know, you were very like subtle about it. Hey, Brand, you know, I see what's going on. I feel for you. Let's chat about it. Let's have a convo. We met up, had the conversation, right? But, you know, previous to that, man, honestly, dude, I was having a regular morning. You know, I had a staff meeting in the morning. It was a Saturday morning. And then one of my staff members is like, hey, she controls the Instagram. She's like, dude, you just got tagged. And I was like, tagged? And I was like, that must be something cool, right? Usually it is.
Right.
But it was not.
Okay.
Yeah, so I ended up getting tagged by this random person, don't know who it is. You know, I don't know how she found the post, but it was a Donald Trump post, right? It said he was right about everything, you know? And that morning, like I said in the interview with Marisol, I'd seen that, you know, Doge was saving the country $1 billion a day, right? So I related that post to, you know, what was happening in the economy. Put 5 clapping emojis and kept my life moving, you know?
Right.
That was from, I think it was a month previous.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, you know, when I saw it, I was like, okay, this is crazy.
Yeah.
You know, kind of brushed it off. I was like, whatever, kept living my day. And she's like, hey, this might actually cause a wave. And I was like, nah, it's cool.
Like in a good way or a bad way?
In a
Or
bad
something
way.
in the middle? Okay.
In a bad way, for sure.
Okay.
You know, because at the moment, like, I didn't think about it, man, but there was so much going on with immigration, you know, like ICE all over the area. Because honestly, like, we usually don't see ICE in the area, you know, where we live in Kennett Square, Oxford, Coatesville, Newcastle, you know, and it was kind of like a thing that was happening constantly. You know what I mean? They were picking people up. So, you know, she was like, hey, this might cause some commotion. I was like, nah, we'll be good. You know, a couple hours go by, another story. And then it just took off, man. And then she was like, hey, they're actually leaving comments now. Like, you should say something. And I was like, no, I'm not going to say anything because it's going to stir the pot. You know, when people are emotional like that and, you know, they have, what would I say? Like, they have a certain view or opinion in the moment, you know, and you try to give a reply or an answer. In my opinion, the way that I saw it, it was a bad moment because you're just going to stir the pot.
Right.
You know, like the water's already rough and then you jump into it, game over. You're going to drown. So that's why it took as long as I did to answer. You know what I mean? I had to kind of bite the bullet. You know, I'd see the posts, I'd see the things that they were saying about me. They were like making up context. What I got confused about, man, is that it was 5 clapping emojis and they gave me this crazy context.
I mean, that's all it
Like,
takes.
yeah, exactly.
That's
it was
all
like
it
a
takes.
crazy story, crazy context. He hates immigrants. He wants everybody deported, you know, a bunch of crazy things. And I was like, yo, this is out of pocket.
Yeah.
You know, this is
So-
surprising.
So here's my goal with this conversation, right? What I noticed with the video you did with Marisol, it was an hour. She was sticking out for you a lot, which was awesome. You know, it's always great having that kind of relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
I feel like when I heard that I think it was a little over an hour of a conversation or about an hour, I feel like it was addressed, but I didn't really get to know you.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where I kind of wanted to step in here a little bit. Yeah, I want to dive into that a little bit more. But I think it helps to give a little bit more context of who you are, because if that's all that people know about you, they might not get like the full story of it.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. Because I mean, with her, they knew the controversy, right? Like, how did it happen? What did end up? You know, what happened with the business? What's my opinion? How did I see things? How did it kind of roll out, right? But I didn't really get a chance to talk about me.
Yeah.
You know, we were just assuming that people knew who I was, and the majority of the community in that area does, but
Yeah.
people outside of the area have no idea who I am. They just
Right.
know I got shared all over
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram about a Donald Trump post. You
Right,
know what I mean?
right.
So.
And
Yeah.
I remember after lunch, I told you, man, I hate that we had to meet this way, but I'm kind of glad that we did because, you know, it's a unique interaction, and I'm curious to see where it goes. So, I mean, I shared with you over lunch that, you know, I wasn't born here. I was born in Ecuador, came to the country when I was 8, lived in New York for a year. I mean, lived in Delaware for a year, New York for 5, and then came back to Delaware, been here since. And thanks to this country, I've been blessed with so many opportunities to serve not just myself, but also those that I love and care about. And I know you have that. You're first generation, right? You're
Yeah.
first generation,
Yeah,
but you clearly have an entrepreneurial spirit, and you're Mexican as well, right? You
Yep.
know, and as we all know, man, Mexicans were like, they work hard as hell.
Yeah, we hustle, man.
You know, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
for
You know,
sure.
like in boxing, when they tell you, oh, you box like a Mexican,
Yeah.
you know, that's a good thing because it's
Yeah.
like you're always walking forward.
Aggressive.
So I want to know your story. Take me from the top. Who exactly is Sal? Where were you born? I want to know who you were like during your early education, what that household looked like, how you got to where you are, and we'll bridge the gap through all that just through conversation. So tell me, where were you born?
Yeah, man. Well, I was born in Westchester, Pennsylvania. You know what I mean? I grew up in West Grove, PA. It's a little small town. We literally have one stoplight. That's it. And like 6 stop signs.
Okay.
You know, so it's tiny. So everybody knows everyone. You know, my parents, they grew up as entrepreneurs. Well, I grew up as my parents being entrepreneurs. You know, my mom, she was always into paperwork. She worked for this place called the Misión Santa Maria. So as immigrant families came into the area, she would help them find housing. She would help them sign kids up for school and different things like that. You know, so I grew up with the immigrant community.
I was going to say, literally, a question
Literally.
in, I'm already finding that interesting fact about you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like she was one of like the first people that actually worked for that agency. Now it's massive. You know what I mean? They used to help 50, 100 families. Now it's 500, 600 families, thousands of people moving into the area that have been helped by that, community group or that establishment. You know, so that's how I grew up. She was learning paperwork. You know, we would get picked up by our pastor from school. So it was really neat, you know, kind of growing up in that environment. You know, my dad's always been in labor. He's a construction worker. He's been working at the same place for 30 years. You know, he likes what he does. He enjoys the work. It's hard labor, and he's just that type of dude.
Yeah.
You know, but on the side, they would always be entrepreneurs, right?
Okay.
Like my dad, he had a hardscaping business, floor installation, floor cleaning. You know, I would get out of school in middle school, like 2:30, 3 o'clock, he'd pick me up and we'd go clean carpets in the afternoon.
There you go.
You know, summers we'd be doing pavers, sidewalks, curbs, different things like that. You know, luckily his boss let him use the equipment so we could do, you know, patios and sidewalks.
Yes.
You know.
So you're no stranger to working hard.
Nah, absolutely not.
And apparently you're not any stranger neither to what immigration looks like, right? So tell me what the household looked like outside of your relationship with your mom and dad. Are you a single child or?
No, so I have an older sister and 2 younger brothers.
Okay.
But we were the house that everybody came to, right? Like all of my cousins pretty much grew up with me. You know, we'd have a family come and that's the place that they would stop at. Like literally every immigrant cousin that I have, it was at our house because my dad was the only one with a house. And we had the space to kind of let people come in and spend some time until they could get on their feet. You know, so I saw that my entire life, man. And I'd see how people get here literally with the clothes on their back and then build themselves up. You know, my cousins, they've been able to buy houses, cars, you know, establish businesses and things like that. So it's cool to see that progress just within my family. You know what I mean? So that's how I grew up. You know, I got to see my cousins come here and then establish themselves and make something of it. You know, they took advantage of the opportunity of being able to come to the country and build.
Tell me, what did early education look like for you?
Oh, man. I was a rebel, dude.
Okay.
Yeah, I was bad.
Okay,
you know?
tell me, how were you bad? Were you the cool guy? Like, because, you know.
I think it was the influence. You know, I had older cousins that they were a little reckless. You know, like back in that time, there was like gangs and stuff like that. You know, it's kind of cleared up at this point. So my cousins, they were in gangs and, you know, I'd get dropped off on the weekend. I have no idea why she let me get dropped off with them. But my mom would take me with them and I'd get dropped off and I grew up around that. You know, fights, you know, smoking, drinking. My cousins were... I mean, I would get dropped off when I was 8 or 9 and they were 13, 15 and they were already drinking, smoking and fighting. Yeah. You know, so like I kind of grew up around that and I got a little rough. Right. You know, so like middle school was tough. You know what I mean? I was fighting every single day after school. And then once I get into high school, you know, I kind of settled down a little bit because I got a girlfriend. She didn't like it. You know, so I kind of chilled out and mellowed out. But I always had a little bit of an edge to me. Okay. You know, I definitely don't take shit from anybody. You know? Still don't.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey, we've had all paths of life come to the podcast. We had some people that been like, you know, the high school jock, the cool guy with the lady, with the guys and all that kind of stuff. We've had like the nerdy type. We've had some that managed to figure out a balance between the two. Yeah. But hey, to each their own. Tell me, like, look at, like, so you're not that guy anymore.
No,
of
course
not. You seem like when I met you, you had a very chill, like, demeanor and everything like that. So what changed?
Honestly, man, I just grew up. I matured a little bit. You know, people started counting on me and I couldn't be screwing up the way that I was before, and the consequences of my actions affecting everyone else around me. You know, when it was just me, when I was growing up, 16, 17, even 18, it was just me. And then when I established the business, I was like, yo, man, if I screw up and I go to jail, like this business goes away. The people that are working here, their jobs go away. The dream that I have goes away. So I was like, hey, I really need to stop.
Yeah.
You know, because even after high school, I was I would go to like dances and stuff and still get in scuffles, you know. But once I like really sat there and thought, hey, this can all go away with one like bad moment.
Yeah.
I really thought about it, and I was like, hey, I need to set an example now.
Yeah.
You know,
Did
I need
you-
to take care of myself and everyone around me.
There was a lot more at play and a lot more to lose at that
Of
point.
course, yeah.
Did you pursue further education after high school?
Yeah, man, I tried community college, to be honest with you. I took 4 courses, and then I went to a business class, and I asked the professor, I was like, hey, man, like, what type of business did you run? Because he was a smart dude, you know what I mean? He had a lot of great information. He was like, oh, I've actually never run a business before. And I was like, I don't know if I should be here, man.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? Because running a business, like, in real life versus theory is a big difference, man. You know what I mean? You can read a bunch of things in a business book, and then when you actually do it, you realize it's much different.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the easy, I guess, example. They say, whatever you think it's going to take, it's 10 or 100 times more.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's the same thing. You know, I didn't want to learn theory. I wanted to learn real life, and I was spending a bunch of money because I didn't know about like student aid. I just paid for it cash.
Right.
You know, so it's eating my capital from the business, even though it was like a write-off. But, you know, I just didn't think it was for me. Like, I really thought about it, and I looked at the classes and what I was learning, and I felt like I was picking up the same amount of information from books and YouTube videos and podcasts, like, as I was learning in those classes.
Interesting.
I was like, you know, the only reason I really wanted to go to college was to network. And at the level that I was playing at, you know, 101 classes, I'm not going to network with anyone. So I was like, I'm in the wrong place.
Yeah.
If that's my like end goal, I need to go to networking events, you know, I need to go to conferences and things like that. And that's where I reallocated the money. You know, all the money I was spending on those classes, I started going to Vegas, Miami, New York, you know, doing sales seminars, going to conferences, conventions. And that's where I really picked up the context that I needed to learn and expand and really progress in my career.
So let's dive in a little further into that leap. When you decided to, I'm going to take my own path here. How old were you?
When I started the business,
Yeah.
I was 17. Yeah, man. So my mom signed the lease for the business when I was 17. She was a co-signer. And as soon as I turned 18, I took her off the lease and I took over it. So that was in May and I graduated in June. So a month and a half, almost 2 months, she was on the lease. And then I took her off the lease as soon as I was legally able to sign it myself. Because the landlord was about to rent it to I think it was a beauty salon.
Okay.
So he was like, yeah, I have somebody interested, like someone else. And I was like, dude, like I really want this. And I was like, how can we like, you know, work around it? He's like, you got to find somebody to co-sign. So I talked to my mom and I was like, hey, co-sign for me. And then as soon as I turn 18, I'll take you off the lease. You know, so that's how we did that.
So, and this is La Bamba, right?
Just for cricket.
For cricket,
Yeah, so
okay.
I've been doing cricket for like 14 years now.
Okay. And then La Bamba came afterwards?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
been 4 years.
So cricket, like what? Okay, so other than taking on the business, that's like, what made you just decide? All right, you know, I'm gonna jump into like the cell phone services.
Well, I grew up
industry.
in the cell phone stuff, right?
So you were always in the store
For
too,
sure.
working it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
So
that makes sense.
my first job was at a farmer's market downloading ringtones. Like my mom, I think she went to go buy a phone, and there was an Indian guy there named TT, awesome dude. You know, very good teacher, very rough, you know, very direct.
Yeah.
But he had a son there named Newman, and he was around my age. And my mom was like, hey, I have a son too. Like, would you give him a job? Can he come and learn from your son? And he's like, yeah, for sure, bring him on the weekends. So I would go to the farmer's market and get dropped off and pretty much work for free to learn what he was doing. That's when the Boost mobiles were out.
Yeah.
So I'd download ringtones and screensavers. I think the first ringtone I downloaded was 50 cents in the club.
Oh,
Yeah,
my man. You
yeah,
can't go wrong
throwback.
with that. It's a classic, you know?
Yeah. So that's how
unit.
I got into it, man. And then I saw that there was a lot of movement. And then from that, I transitioned into downloading music onto iPods, you know, and that was a hustle because landscapers would come and leave like a whole book full of songs. And that's when LimeWire was out.
I was just going to ask you about LimeWire.
Yeah, that's a
Oh, my
throwback.
God.
I got like 20 viruses on my computer.
Nostalgia just hit.
So I downloaded the songs, put them on the iPod, dude. I'd make like $1,500 in like a week downloading songs. So that's how I saved up the money to be able to buy the first couple phones. So I started with 17 phones and like 45 cases.
Wow.
It was 2,500 square feet. I had a desk that I bought at a Blockbuster that was closing, a register from a yard sale, and a little like counter from the yard sale. So I bought the register, they gave me the counter for free. And then I bought the Blockbuster desk for like $250.
Yeah.
Which was crazy heavy, dude. It took like 9 of us to move it.
I was about to say, did this like become like a game to you?
Yeah, it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
You know what, dude? I think you're so naive when you're young that it seems like a game. Like you don't know what's actually on the line. It's like I got a 3-year lease. You know, I have to like sell to pay for the rent. I have bills now. You know, I kind of like understood that because since I was like 13, 14, I've always bought my own stuff, you know, my own clothes and my shoes, and I've taken care of myself. You know, my parents have been there for me, but I was always independent. You know what I mean? I just kind of grew up like that, you know, but I didn't realize the commitment that I was making, like signing a commercial lease. Now I think about it, dude, I'll send the lease to my lawyer now. You know, like you actually have to go through steps.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, sure, here, signed. Let's go.
Okay.
You know, here's some money. Here's my desk. I got a couple phones. I like opened the door and I was like, ta-da, I got a business.
But
you
let's
know?
start, but you go into your 20s, you know, you're not in your teens anymore. And now things are starting to kick in like, oh, I got to think twice about this. Like, as you said, you start realizing what you're getting yourself involved in. What kept you?
Like I said, I've never met anyone in that industry, so I'm curious as to what just kept you going in it.
Man, just faith and hope, you know. So I got into cricket expecting the iPhone 4S to drop. Like that was the big thing. I was like, oh, once we get it, we're going to make money.
Yeah.
It never came to cricket. So I had to kind of like buckle down, readjust, and figure out how I was going to keep the doors open at that point. And then luckily we had like a little Samsung that came out. And that's when if you switch to cricket, you get a free phone started.
Yeah,
like the free phones. Now it's like a regular thing, but then it was like huge. Like, oh, I'm going to get a Samsung for free. And like that took off, you know? So it was like little spurts, I don't want to say of luck, but of just patience and things kind of coming together that kept me motivated. I just see like little flickers of light that kept me in the game, to be honest with you.
So the theme of it is, it's not even necessarily the industry itself. It's just, you just wanted to keep it growing. You just wanted to keep growing what you had going on.
Yeah. And you get moments, right? Like if you stay in the game and you're faithful to what you do and you believe in what you do, you're going to get little silver linings that are going to remind you that you can get there. You know, not everything is dark. Right? You're going to get little spurts of light. It's like, oh, I got like an extra sale today. Oh, I could actually pay my electric bill this month, right? Oh, I afforded rent. And like you get those little stepping stones and you're like, okay, I'm not as bad as I think. And this actually might work out. And when it was literally that for the first 5 years, dude, I thought that I was going to close. And it's like, oh, no, you know, my bank account is negative, but just enough money came in today to cover it. It was like those moments, man, like back to back to back to back. But it's never giving up. You know, you just have to keep moving through that. You gotta have to keep moving through it and keep faith in yourself.
And you're talking about the finances, meeting the finances for the business. You're not even talking about your own finances.
No, man, I didn't take any money home. I was actually at some point working landscaping on the weekends to pay my employees, and the business was paying just the bills. You know what I mean? So like I was doing side hustles, man. And I remember my dad was like, dude, why are you landscaping if you have a business? I was like, because it's not generating enough. Like that's where people kind of get confused, right? They're like, oh, well, my business should just give me enough. It's like, nah, dude, you might have to keep a 9 to 5 for a little while to be able to like pull this off.
Right.
And that was me, dude. Like Friday afternoon, Saturday all day, Sunday all day, I would go landscape, pull some money together, and then pay my employee. Literally, my check was going to my employee. You know what I mean?
That's an interesting angle too, because we typically have the people that from day one go all in, which it sounds like is what you did.
Yep.
And then we have the people that were hybrid entrepreneurs that, you know, worked a 9 to 5 and were building something on the side. But you went in and then said, all right, I need to pick up a job here, like a side gig here, so I can meet the main gigs like expenses.
Yep.
Tell me, now for guys, especially for, you know, Latinos, you know, we're proud. You know, we're proud. Like, did that make you feel any kind of way? You say, shit, man, like I gotta make up some extra income for
Yeah.
the business. You know, how's it going to look in the public eye? Because you
No,
said
of
you got
course.
those kind of questions like
Yeah,
that.
for
you know?
sure. I
It's like,
think
why,
it's
you know?
yeah. I think it was especially my dad, my family. They're like, yo, you got a business, dig into that, like sink your teeth into it. And I was like, it's just not giving me enough, man. And I think I just didn't know enough more than anything. I think I could have pulled it off now, pero como dicen, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it affected my pride. Even when he asked me one time, he was like, how much do you have saved? And I remember this was like one of the most devastating things, but it was also one of the most motivating things. He's like, how much money do you have saved up? Literally, bro, I had a 5-gallon bucket of coins. That was it after 3.5 years of being in business. And I thought about, and I still think about it. I promise, it's gas. It's like David Goggins. He says you need cookies in the cookie jar. That's one of my cookies, man.
Yeah.
Like when I'm really eating it, I'm like, yo, if I have $100, it's more than what I had when I first started. So I'm good. You know,
Yeah.
unless I get to that point where all I have is coins, then I'll concern myself.
Interesting.
You know, but it's really something motivating. But yeah, you got to stay in the game. You know, there's going to be people that are going to doubt you, people that question what you're doing, you know, but if you know what you're doing and you truly believe in it, you figure it out. You know, you
So-
figure it out for sure.
There's before going into La Bamba, there's a lot I could dive into. Just everything you're telling me now. Something I like to ask our guests that are in business, especially like younger ones such as yourself. We're constantly on social media, right? Tell me, you know, I go on your social media. I see, you know, the nice things, the nice car. You know, you drive a G-Wagon.
Yeah.
You drive a G-Wagon,
Thank God.
right? You drive
Yeah.
a beautiful car.
Very
Yeah, you gotta
grateful.
let me check it out.
Yeah,
before
dude,
you
whenever
leave.
you want.
What's it called? Actually, it's funny because a G-Wagon was at one point in a what do they call it? Like dream boards?
Oh, the vision boards.
The vision boards, yes.
Yep.
Vision boards. It
You
was
wanna
my
know
first
what's
car.
great?
Huh?
Oh, go ahead. No, go.
No. So it was my first like dream car on the vision
Yeah.
board. As I got older, it turned into a Toyota Camry.
Oh, no way. The transition.
You know?
Right?
So tell me, you know, we see what were you gonna say before I asked
I was
you
gonna
what
say,
ask
dude,
you?
that car was on my vision board since 2015. I still have the vision board in my office. This was a huge accomplishment.
And when
so
did that
was
become
on
a
my
reality?
vision board, and then doing a TED talk, both of those. Yep.
You have done that.
And I
Yeah,
did
you
that
have done
too.
that.
Yeah,
Tell me
this stuff works.
when did the wagon come to reality?
Last December. And then I did the TED talk in August. So both of those got pulled off the same year.
Oh man, so
Yeah.
it's like the past year, a lot of good has happened, and then you had that one incident. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But okay, so what I was gonna ask you was social media, right? I see you. I'm like, dude, this guy looks like he's killing it, right? Do you think that for other people, that is everybody else like that? Is there a lot of fake success in social media? Is it
For
really
sure.
what they put it out to be?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of flexing out there for sure. You know what I mean? But if you can back it up, it's different. You know, that G-Wagon is not the first car that I've bought. So,
Okay.
you know, I've got a track record.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
tell me about. Do you think this is maybe affecting people's idea of what entrepreneurship really is?
Yeah, for sure. To
Okay.
be honest with you, I think younger guys see me and they're like, oh, I'm going to pull that off in 3 years. They don't know that I've been doing this for 14 years. Like, I've been doing this for more than a decade, you know, and they're like, oh, well, why isn't my business working? I don't have enough money to buy a G-Wagon. And it's like, dude, you won't. That's not how it works,
Yeah.
you know? And then there's other people that put up, you know, that they're traveling, new trucks, things that are not theirs, you know, and that's what confuses the kids, you know, younger guys, you know, because they're like, oh man, like I want to open my own business and buy a car. It's like, dude, that's going to take you a long time. It's going to take you a decade. It took me 14 years to buy my G-Wagon. You know what I mean? Like, I've been envisioning for it for 10, pretty much 9 years, but it took 14 to be in a position where I could comfortably buy one. You know, then there's other people that they buy cars they can't afford, and then that's when shit hits the fan. You know what I mean?
So, what advice would you give to those people that want to end up like you, like with a nice car? You know, you got a gray haircut, you got the muscles and everything. How are they able to pick apart the ones that are actually doing it from the ones that are just BSing?
That's a good
What
one,
red
man.
flags do you?
I mean, like if I looked at somebody, it's the conversation because I'm in business, right? Like I'm gonna start asking you, like, hey, how long have you been in business for? How many employees do you have? You know, what do you invest in? We can pick up on it. You know, like I was doing a podcast in California, and those guys were dissecting each other subtly.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, these guys are good.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
these guys are
What
real
kind of
good.
what kind of questions was they asking? each
I
other?
mean, they would just ask each other. So, like, what are your plans? What's coming up next? You know, things like that. And depending on the answer, they'd be like, okay, this guy's for real.
Interesting.
You know what
It's
I mean?
like you're
What are
playing
you
chess.
doing? Like, what about your assistant? What about your employees? What's your structure look like? You know, what's your facility look like? Those types of questions. So it's kind of the same thing. Like if there's a landscaper, for example, and he's driving a GTR, oh, that's cool, dude. Like, where's your shop at? You know what I mean? How many bays does it
Yeah.
have? You know, how many employees do you have? You know, how long have you been in business for? Are you commercial?
Yeah.
Are you residential? What type of jobs do you do? You know, like those types of questions for us that know business, like we can kind of press you a little bit and figure that out. But for someone that doesn't know, really you have to look at the track record. If they just kind of came out of nowhere and have stuff, you should be careful.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Because there's no timeline to it. Like if they all of a sudden came up on social media and they're driving a F450 and they look really cool, they're in debt.
Yeah.
90% of the time. They're in
Okay.
debt up to their neck.
Yeah.
Just to be able to flex. You know what I mean?
Debt
Or
up
they're
to
in
their
like
neck, I
a
like
Corvette
that.
or a Lambo, but they don't have that track record of, oh, I've seen this business for a long time. You could go on their Facebook and Instagram, dude, and figure it out right away, to be honest with you.
Really?
You know what I mean? For sure. I can, the majority of the time.
Well, it's hard sometimes because it's like it's all highlights on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Not often do you see people showing like their dark days on Instagram.
Yeah.
But I'm curious too because the thing that goes on today that specifically I want to ask you because you invest in yourself a lot is there's a lot of people out here who are selling courses,
Yeah.
right? It's the
gurus.
course gurus, you know.
Yeah.
But you invest in yourself a lot. So how do you pick apart the apart from what you told me specifically in courses, the ones that are just selling the shovel versus the actual gold?
Yeah. So, sorry. You mind if I drink some
No,
water?
you're
All right,
good.
cool.
I'll limit it to like 2 sips.
Yeah.
But no, I know it's a little hot in here, dude.
After that, we cut it. Now, dude, I run hot. Like, I really do, dude. It can be 63 degrees and I'll break a sweat. It's crazy. Yeah, but going back to your question, you know, how can you kind of filter out a good coach or a mentor or a good course? You got to really look at the content. You know what I mean? If these guys are giving you a lot of surface level things and they're like, oh, to get the rest of the information, buy my course. Sketch. It's a red flag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The people got to give you all of it. You know, I like a guy, Alex Hormozy. Dude, he gives you everything with open hands. Gary Vaynerchuk does too. You know, then I see other guys and they're driving cool cars and like, you can do this. Like, you can be like this. And just buy my course. Dude, red flag. Super red flag.
90% of Miami, maybe.
I know, right? For real. Yeah.
Dude, I could see you being like a Hispanic Alex Hormozy.
Yeah,
You just gotta
hopefully,
get the
one
tank
day.
top going.
I
you
need the
know,
beard
flannel.
and then the flannel. Yeah.
I can see you killing
And the
it.
khaki shorts.
Right?
Yeah.
Because like that's the thing with Alex, right? He doesn't. When I follow him and I love his books. He just announced his third one.
Yeah, man.
Dude, those are gems, and I love that he makes it so simple to read too, which is even better. What I love about him is that he's simple. You never see him like showing anything extravagant. It's all pure value up front. So I mean, I 1000% agree with you that and that's as someone that just gets brought up a lot in business today.
Yeah.
So let's dive into La Bamba.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
It was when we went to Los Angeles.
Okay.
Right. It was like right before COVID. There wasn't a lot to do around here. So I was like, if we can travel, let's go. And we went to California and we were kind of navigating around LA, downtown LA, and we ended up seeing an ice cream shop. And it was sick. It was so nice. It was very like creative, colorful. We saw popsicles we never seen before. The design, the customer service, the uniforms. It was just really different. You know, it was different from what I'm accustomed to back home and in Mexico, you know, and I was like, this would be really cool back home. I was like, we have enough of a community that something like this would really do well, you know, and that kind of just sat there for a little while.
Now, I'm sorry, but you said this is 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
You started it 4 years ago. So
Yep.
we're talking like right or near
Like
pandemic.
pre-COVID.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm sorry. I want to make sure I got the correct timeline here.
Yeah. So this was all pre-COVID when I went to LA, you know, and then what happened was that my main store caught on fire. Like my heaviest hitting cell phone store caught on fire. The whole shopping center shut down, you know, and I was kind of sitting there and I was like, all right, well, the store is going to open back up, and there's a place that has a hood, like a kitchen hood, but it's getting rented by an insurance guy. So I talked to him. I was like, hey, man, if I can convince the landlord to give you a good rent on the space next to us, would you take it? And he's like, why? And I was like, because you have a kitchen hood, and I have an idea. And he's like, yeah, talk to him. So I negotiated the rent for my neighbor. He agreed to it. Game on. Flew back to Cali, started taking notes. And I was like, okay, this is actually really feasible. I think I can pull this off, and we started accumulating the ideas. I would fly to Cali Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, come back Monday morning, and then start working the week. And I did that for about 2 months. I navigated from Santa Barbara to San Diego and hit about 85 ice cream shops in between.
Okay.
There's a lot of ice cream, dude. A lot of popsicles.
So literally, you're all over the place here. I mean,
Yeah.
you go from phones to now ice creams.
Yeah.
At what point did the pandemic come into play here?
So the pandemic was when my store caught on fire. So COVID started March. The store caught on fire May, and I think it was January when I went to Cali. So the idea, the seed was already there since the beginning of the year. I didn't expect COVID to happen. It was just kind of a thing. I was over there in Cali and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. You know what I mean? And then boom, COVID hit, and I was like, all right, we got to do something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We got to do something different, and then that's when it caught on fire. The store caught on fire and I was like, man, like, shit, like I have a lot of time on my hands. And I was like, well, let me ask Rob, which is the insurance guy, like, hey, what are we going to do? Can you move XYZ? And that's how it kind of started flowing.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So, and then take me to, you negotiated the rent for the gentleman and then you started up the business there. Now, I don't think you went to school for this, right? I don't think from your 4 classes there was a chapter in ice cream or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
So,
No, not at all.
So tell me, like, how did you even go about that?
Yeah, so when I had the idea and we actually negotiated with the landlord, like, I didn't know anything. Like, I always jump into things, I don't know, very naively. And I'd already been in business for a while. So I was like, okay, like, we're going to open it up an ice cream shop, YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So I literally started watching YouTube videos. I'd invite friends over. I'd buy ice cream from another ice cream shop, and we'd make the snacks and then let people try them. It's like, what do you think? They're like, this is okay. All right, well, that one checked. What about this one? I don't really like it, but I was like, this is going to take forever. And by the time we actually opened, because we were already buying equipment, by the time we open, we're not going to know what the hell we're doing.
Yeah.
So the lady that we were watching the YouTube videos from, I told my then partner, I was like, hey, you should message her to see if she gives courses. And actually 2 weeks after, like 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, she was doing a course in Illinois. So we ended up flying to Illinois and we took a 10-day course on how to make ice cream, snacks, fruit snacks, all different types of things. Like pretty much everything that we learned for the shop was within 10 days. And then we wrote it down and took a bunch of notes and recorded a bunch of videos. And that's how we opened up the shop. It was like 10 days
Who's
of training.
with you with all this?
My then partner.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, that that makes it a little bit more complicated to ask questions
I know.
on that.
I know.
But how do you manage like someone coming along for the ride? They're not crashing because you're all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, you look like you got the stamina to withstand all of that, but sometimes having someone tag along for the vision can be a little tough. You went to the conference and everything. You were for 10 days, and you mentioned that you were with a partner.
Yep.
But what I have a hard time sometimes thinking about is how do you get people to tag along for the vision that you have? Because that's what people are buying into first. So what were you selling? How did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, like my then partner, my girlfriend at the time, both of us wanted to do something with business. I mean, she always wanted to do her thing. She was a hairstylist at that moment and she wanted to do a hair salon. And then when we went to LA together, both of us, it kind of clicked. We're like, yo, this would be really cool. And when I pitched the idea, I was like, hey, if we do this, this is going to blow up. Like, it's going to take off. So that was kind of like me pitching it to her. She picked it up and then we rolled, and as it went, it was really successful in the beginning. And luckily we've been able to stay successful, what I mean? But it was a huge pop. It was the first ice cream store that opened in the area in the last like 22 years. So it was huge. The first weekend we had like 500 customers, so it was very taxing on us as employees, and it was very taxing on the relationship at the same time.
I was just going to ask you, if I may.
Yeah.
A lot of people that have came on here, a good amount have told me, don't work with your friends or family. but I've never really gotten to dive into someone that, you know, you're romantically involved with.
Yeah.
So are you okay with like
Yeah, we could talk
giving
about
me
that.
the heads up on that?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
No, I mean, like, in all honesty, we were together for a while. You know, we were a good couple. You know, then we opened the business and things start happening, right? Because you bring stuff home. You know, that's the hard part that people don't talk about. They're like, yeah, open a business with somebody that you trust, someone that you sleep next to every night. It's like, yeah, but if you can't like separate the things and set boundaries, you bring that stuff home and you argue at night with the person that you're sleeping next to. You know, and we didn't realize that. We were both young. You know, I think at that point I was 25 and she might have been 21, 22. So we jumped into the business young either way. You know, but
and if you don't mind me asking, how old are you now?
I'm 31.
31. Okay.
Yeah. So I had to have been like 25, 26-ish. You know what I mean? And but she's younger than me, about 4 years. You know, and we didn't know what that dynamic was like. We're like, yeah, this is gonna be fun. Yo, it got crazy. It got crazy. Yeah. So there's just so much stress on a brand new business that you're not used to, that you're not familiar with. You have a big staff. We went from having 6 employees to 14 employees within 3 weeks because the demand was so heavy. Literally, we had 2-hour lines every single day. You know, so it was very stressful. And like, we didn't have time for each other. It was like business, 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 business. That's all we talked about. You know, so like we were able to make it happen and make it work for a little while. But there came a time where things got too much to handle, you know, and she took a break from the business for a little while. You know, I stayed involved in the business. And then after a while, we kind of came back together and talked about it. It was a project that both of us loved. Both of us wanted to be involved in. And I said, hey, let's figure out a way for us to set boundaries and work together. And believe it or not, man, like romantically, we were great together, but professionally and in a business sense, we're monsters.
Yeah.
We're amazing together. Like we have such a good dynamic when it comes to the business that I think that we do a better job as partners than we did as, you know, a couple.
Okay.
You know? Although there's good times there for sure.
So
I'm not going to complain.
Not Hermosis 2.0 here.
Yeah,
huh?
right? Yeah. Just a different dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now looking back at that, that's because that's interesting. I haven't dove into that with anybody before. You know, all in hindsight 2020, right?
Yeah.
But looking back, like, what would you keep in mind? Because you're figuring out the business, but you're also figuring out the dynamic of that angle of the relationship at the same time. So looking back, what would you keep in mind to yourself?
I mean, what I would have done differently that maybe would have made things less rocky, having very clear job roles. We would go back and forth. She would manage, I would manage, she would clean, I would clean, she would train, I would train, and having more clear roles for each person avoids a lot of the conflict because you're getting involved with my stuff, I'm getting involved with your stuff, you blame me, I blame you. It's kind of like we're, you know, just pointing fingers at some point, you know. So if I were to do it again, you know, with my future partner, you know, I would definitely say, hey, look, we can do this together, but let's have very clear job roles so there's no confusion. You play in your field, I play in my field, and everything should work out, you know. And then let's leave work stuff at work. That would be a huge rule. If not, we're not going to do it. You know, because when you bring stuff home from work, it's one thing when you bring it home and you're like, dude, like I had a long day, you know, but it's different when it's like, you know exactly what happened because you kind of breeze over it with your partner. Like it was a long day. What happened? Work stuff, you know, but when you know the details, it's like you can sit there and talk about it and argue about it and give an opinion about it, especially when there's a conflict. You know, there's different opinions. It's kind of hard to leave that at work, but that has to be a rule. That would have to be a rule for me. Hey, like whatever happens at work stays at work. When we're at home, it's just you and I, and it's our relationship, you know, and we didn't do that. We thought that it was proactive to bring things home and still try to solve stuff at home. And it's not. You know, we had a whiteboard in our kitchen that we would be up till like 1, 2, 3 in the morning, like writing notes down on, you know, thinking that was productive. And all it was doing was stressing the relationship more because we didn't get time to spend together without talking about business.
What an interesting angle. You know, people typically keep whiteboards in the kitchen to write down groceries they need to pick up. And you guys were doing business lessons.
It was a 4x6, dude. It was huge. The whole kitchen wall.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You know, well, fellas, take notes. You know, establish those clear roles and have that communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I get to some extent what you're saying, because with friends, right?
Yeah.
Like, you ever have that friend that you just get along great with,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe you take on a project together, or like end up working together at some point, and then you realize, wait a minute,
Yeah.
we're
Yep.
not necessarily the same from this aspect. What's going
Yeah.
on here?
Yeah. Nah, for sure. And that's happened to me. My 4 like best friends, when I started the business, we started doing like phone distribution, like selling to other stores. And it was rock. Somebody would come to work, someone wouldn't, somebody would be hung over, someone would go out with their girlfriend, and there's just so much relationship in between each other that you're like, he'll be okay. Like, he won't mind. That's my boy. So that's why they usually tell you, don't open a business with your friends, your family, or your spouse. I would still avoid friends and family. I would probably still do my spouse, like, because that's somebody that you're actually building with. Like, I love the empire thing, like the Alex Hormozy, Layla Hormozy. I love that. You know what I mean? Because they're building towards the same dream that's for them as a couple. Doing it with your family is kind of like, it's different. You know what I mean? It's not for your kids. It's not for your wife. And with your friends, it's kind of like, this is my boy.
Yeah.
So I would still steer clear of those two personally, but I would still build with a partner. But like you said, very clear roles. Home is home, is work is work. That's how I would do it.
So tell me, at what point did you have a moment with Obama where like once you were in operations? I know you said you like doubled your staff.
Yeah.
Within like a matter of weeks. Like, what was that moment where you said, "Oh wait, hold on, we have something here"?
Yeah.
What was that moment?
First weekend. Believe it or not, man.
Okay.
First weekend. It was so crazy. So like, we have a crazy opening story. Like, we hadn't gotten approved by the health inspector, like the day of we got approved. The night before, I didn't sleep because I didn't know if we were going to pass the health inspection to have our grand opening. So that morning, she came at 8 a.m. The grand opening was at 11. She checked everything. I was sweating bullets. And she's like, now you're good. And that was like a relief. And I was like, all right, as long as people show up today, like, I'll be cool. My sister showed up, my family, her family. We had like 15, 20 people. And we were like, okay, this is cool. We started posting online. And then all of a sudden, boom, a line. And the line didn't stop. And it didn't stop. And it didn't stop. And I took a second. I walked outside. And literally the line wrapped around the building. Jeez. That day, we had 3.5-hour lines. Like, we literally had to go at the end of the day at like 10:30. And let people know, like, hey, come back tomorrow because we ran out of everything. It was insane. And that's how it was for the first 30 days, believe it or not. I'm not lying.
Dude,
it was insane.
That's very rare, because a lot of people don't have that moment until like maybe years down the road sometimes. So
now, we were super lucky. The community came out. Like, honestly, like, we were super lucky. The news came out. Like, they covered us in magazines and things like that. So it was cool. It was really nice to see people supporting and excited.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see the kids come in, like, super excited and want to take a picture because we got these little wings, for the background, and they would take their selfies there and stuff like that. So that was neat. I think more than the traffic, I was happy that people were happy walking in,
Interesting. Where's La Bamba now?
Yeah, so we're right before franchise, man. So we're finishing our production plan. It's going to be a 3,000 square foot facility where we're going to do like industrial grade equipment. We get a machine coming in this week. We got our walk-in, popsicle, makers, flow wrappers. We're really trying to get into a bigger game so we can handle the volume once we start franchising.
I think over lunch you specifically said that you wanted to be the Disney of ice cream or something like that.
I'm trying to be.
What does
like,
that mean?
We're trying to be national, man. You know what I mean? I want to start with 50 locations. Like, that's my main goal. 50 locations nationwide, spread out as far as we can reach. You know what I mean? And I have an idea for that, right? So we're going to start East Coast because this is where we have the manufacturing plant, the facility. But I have an idea on how we can keep expanding as we're building out, the brand itself, because we're getting into high schools too and middle schools. So it's going to be like a lifetime brand. That's really what I want it to be. That's the Disney part, right? We're going to be in middle schools, elementary schools, because we're making our popsicles with certain health factors in mind, with certain ingredients and sugar and things like that on what kids should be consuming and what they shouldn't. So we're keeping that in mind so kids can consume it their entire childhood, from, middle school or elementary school all the way to high school. And it's a brand that they remember.
Yeah.
They're like, I grew up on La Bamba. It's like saying Oreo, like, dude, I love Oreos.
Right, right.
I love Mickey Mouse. I want La Bamba to be like, I love La Bamba.
There you go.
From when you're 6, 7, 8, all the way till adulthood, and you can bring your kids to La Bamba and be like, yo, my mom used to bring me here. My dad used to bring me here. That's really what I want to see.
Now, is the obsession with ice cream or just building it to be something like that?
Building, man.
Yeah.
Honestly. Yeah. I was telling somebody the other day, if you gave me a hot dog stand, I'd do the same thing. I love the building part.
What fuels that, man? Because a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah.
A lot
I
of
think
people
it's
don't have
just seeing it actually happen, right? Like, I love going into new locations like white boxes for our cell phone stores and imagining what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And I walk through it and I can feel it and I envision it. And I love finally looking back and opening the door and seeing it done. That's what I love about business. That's what I love about La Bamba, and that's why I love the popsicles.
Yeah.
Because you can imagine different things and then you can go and create it.
Yeah.
So it gives you that ability to be creative all the time on a quicker level.
Now, you're only one person.
Yeah.
So you have teams.
Mhm.
So you're a boss, you're a leader. Tell me, what has that, because, opening up the business and starting it up and trying to get the wheels running is a whole different wheelhouse from managing and working and leading people. What has been some of the challenges you had with that? Or has it just come natural to you?
Honestly, man, no, not at all. I've been like a really bad leader before. When I started, I was super rocky. Plus, I was young. I was 17. So I didn't know how to lead people. I didn't know how to speak to people. I didn't know how to motivate them. It was like my way or the highway. And as you develop and mature as a person, you notice that leadership plays a big part, right? My coach right now, he's like, yo, you are in the leadership game. You are in the people business, right? So you have to learn how to develop yourself as a leader if you want to be successful, right? Because I think like the number one pillar over good operations, good product, how good can you treat people? Because without people, you don't have a business. I don't care who it is. You can have one person and you can only get so far with one person. You know what I mean? You still need people to expand your operation, to run your systems and processes, to do everything else and make your sales, right? So if you're a bad leader, you're not going to have people stick around very long.
Yeah.
And as look, my biggest lessons, unfortunately, were when I made my business mistakes with people. You know what I mean? I definitely screwed up a lot, with a lot of people. And thankfully, they were patient. Some people weren't, and I think that those bumps and bruises showed me how to be a better leader. And then eventually I was like, hey, I can't keep taking this route. Like, I can't keep making mistakes to learn my lesson. I need to learn this, like, beforehand.
If you don't mind, in school, sometimes, when the teachers go on lectures and you might not exactly get what they're saying when they're teaching a lesson, you're encouraged to raise your hand, right?
Yeah.
And ask the questions. But sometimes you got to deal with the fear and anxiety of like asking a stupid question or not want to sound silly or just nervous to ask a question, right?
Yeah.
But when that one person does ask it, there's another person probably in the other side of the class where it's like, oh, I'm glad you asked that question.
Yes.
Because I was wondering the same thing. I want to take an angle here. If you don't mind, I don't want to get too personal because, I don't want to put anything out there that you don't want to put out there. What's a specific example of that? When you had to learn the hard way?
That's a good one.
So maybe when someone hears, shit, I'm going through that right now, or I went through that once.
I think when you don't see people as people, when you see them as employees, that's your biggest mistake. When you see someone as, oh, well, I pay you so I can tell you what to do, and you have to suck it up, it's the worst thing you can do. When you're not empathetic, when you don't put yourself in their shoes, when you don't see them as a person with a name and a family and feelings, it's the biggest mistake, man. People just see numbers. They're like, or they just see titles. You're my manager, I can talk to you the way that I want to. You're my subordinate, I can talk to you the way that I want to. And that was my biggest mistake, man. I saw people as employees and not as people. They didn't have names sometimes. They'd just be like, you're my manager, you're my advocate, you're my salesperson. And I can speak to you as that. You need to do your job because I'm the one that gives you your paycheck at the end of the week. And it's not like that, man. I read this incredible book, Leadership and Self-Deception, and it really talks about being in a box or out of the box. When you're in the box, You just see people as numbers, employees. When you're out of the box, you see them as people with names, families, dreams, feelings, emotions. And that's my biggest lesson, man. Treating people just like
Yeah.
an employee versus treating them like a business partner, man. Because all of our employees at the end of the day, dude, they're business partners. Whether they make a profit share or not, like they're there helping us build the business as a team,
So we recently, the team and I recently attended this conference by the Blue Rock Financial Group called the Delaware Business Owner Summit over in Dewey Beach at the Hyatt Hotel. And one of the speakers was Katie Cutler, who is the owner, founder of Cafe Karma over in Greenville. And she's evolved. She has her hands in so many things. I wonder sometimes the same thing that I wonder to do is how the hell do you guys do it? And she specifically dove into something she called the human side of productivity, right? Which kind of reminded me of what you're saying, where she specifically was picking at people with corporations specifically about how they throw pizza parties and they think that's employee appreciation or little stuff like that. That they think is showing that they think it's appreciating your employee, but it's really not. It's just you're checking off a box. What does that look like for you? What does your side of the human productivity look like?
Dude, I love that. I love that. You know what I mean? Because I'm literally talking to my leadership about that right now, right? Because a lot of the people, they come into leadership and they're like, oh, thank you. I'm going to buy you lunch today. And they're like, check the box. Showed appreciation. But that's not it, man. Like, you really got to get deeper than that. You know what I mean? You got to get to know the people. As difficult as it is to get to know every single person on a 22-person sales team, you need to take the time because you signed up for leadership. That's your job. You got to get to know them as people so you can dive a little bit deeper. I try to tell them, hey, get them lunch. I'm not saying not to. That's great. It's a nice gesture. Get them coffee. That's cool too. But ask them how they are. How are you doing? How was your son's baseball game? I heard your wife was, taking her driver's license test. How'd she do? Right? I'll give you you want a little tip for that?
Please.
Right, cool. So this is for, management 101. This is how I was better at it. So every time I have a conversation with someone, I try to dive a little bit deeper than, hey, how are you? How do you feel at work? How's it been? I try to ask them things about them. Yeah, like, what are your interests? What do you like? Favorite food? Stuff like that. And I take little notes on my cell phone. And I'm like, oh, this person loves Starbucks. So what do you like at Starbucks? I like this type of drink. You know what I mean? Hey, so baseball game, son, write that down. You know what I mean? Mom's birthday this weekend, write that down. The next time I see you, I check those notes before I walk in. Hey, how was your mom's birthday? You might think that's cheating. It's being considerate. It's taking the time to be a leader and write little notes for yourself so you have something to talk about. So they feel good and they're like, damn, they took the time to ask me about it. They might think that you memorized it, but look, dude, we have so many things that we think about. It'd be halfway impossible to think about, his daughter's softball game, but you're taking the time, you're being considerate, you're writing a little note for yourself so you have a nice combo with your staff so you can relate to them and see how they are. That's my tip. That's honestly taken me a long way with my staff.
I think the best thing I could have ever done is download a birthday reminder app.
I dig that.
Because anytime I hear someone's birthday, I'll just go on the side and add it on the birthday app. Now, there's two ways to look at that, right?
Yeah.
There's, when the birthday comes, they could be like, oh, he's just like messaging me happy birthday just because he has it on an app. But no, it goes back down to what you said. It's, no, I want to remember that it's your birthday for the reason that there's so much going on. It's actually almost close to impossible to remember as many details of the people that you want to show care about.
Correct.
So okay, that's but I want to challenge that a little bit, right? I know you're saying you're trying to be so mindful of everybody there, but the saying, you can't pour out of an empty cup.
Yeah.
So how do you keep your cup full enough to be able to pour into other people's cup?
That's a good one, man. Honestly, look, I took meditating serious a long time ago. You know what I mean? And being grateful a long time ago. That's a pillar of my day. I wake up in the morning and I'm grateful, and that pours into my cup. Seeing people be more successful in the business, that pours into my cup. No one needs to pour into my cup. I'm a leader, man. I need to pour in my own cup. You know, I tell my staff all the time, nobody wakes me up in the morning and pats me on the back. I need to pat myself on the back. This is what we signed up for. You think that people that are in leadership roles get a high five all the time? Nobody throws us pizza parties, you know? Entrepreneurs don't get, lunch, right? We have to do that ourselves. And we have to learn how to do that and appreciate what we do and love ourselves and love the work that we do and love the staff that we have. And that's what pours into my cup, seeing other people successful and develop and grow and advance in the company. And then the customers are happy. All that stuff pours into my cup. And look, one of the things that I say every single morning is, thank you, God, for giving me another day to do what I love, right? And that's more than enough, man. That fills up like 95% of my cup gets full right after that statement, right? Because we just get one more day to do what we like. And when you enjoy what you do, bro, you can't complain.
I saw, I think it was Katie uploaded maybe a week or two ago, or she had reposted something on her story. It was someone else's post. It was like, it's something in the lines of like, how much of a blessing it is to feel as busy and worked as I am right now. Like, it's such an angle.
Yeah.
It's such an angle versus feeling like, fuck, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
I'm sick of this shit. It's like, what a blessing to be this busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is your reaction? What are your thoughts on that?
Same thing, man. That's another thing that I say all the time. I am blessed and I'm grateful for all the challenges and the successes that I've had in this business. And my coach told me the other day, he's rough, badass. Shout out to Ricardo, great dude. He was like, yo, because I asked him, I was like, okay, dude, like, what do you do when you feel overwhelmed and you just feel like a lot of things are happening to you and you get frustrated? So you need to sit down and you need to remind yourself, you signed up for this. And I was like, oh, dude, you got me. I was like, you got me, man. You got me. I was like, okay. And I try to remind myself that now. Nobody made me do this. We signed up for business. We signed up for leadership roles. This is what I was telling my staff the other day. I was like, you're a manager, right? Yep. And I was like, did somebody force you to be a manager? They're like, no. And I was like, okay, then we assume the responsibility and we got to navigate that. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying you're not going to be frustrated, but you need to like remind yourself, like, I signed up for this. I need to figure out how to handle it too. Yeah. And that's why good mentors, good coaches, good leaders, that's when they really come in handy, because they teach you those strategies, those different ways to move past those challenges, obstacles, and, different frustrations that happen in leadership.
So we're talking a lot about intangibles and stuff like that to keep in mind as we're navigating through life. I want to know specifically, because I like the viewers and the audience to walk away with actual things that they can imply in their lives. Tell me, what does that look? Is there an app you use for meditation? Is there what tools actually help you feel in flow, for lack of a better term?
Yeah. Is that for flow myself or the business?
For you.
For me? Yeah. So I listened to a guy named Joe Dispenza. I went to his seminar, his retreat down in Cancun. So I listened to him every morning. It's an hour of meditating. It seems like a long time, but once you get into flow state, you're there. That calms you down. It brings a lot of focus. And right after that, man, I try to go do cardio. I try to work out, or go for a walk, get some sunlight. And then you got to deep dive into what your schedule looks like. If you just look, if you're trying to catch a rhythm, 15 minutes, sit down, shut up for 15 minutes. Don't think of anything. Don't turn your phone on. Don't look at anything. Literally wake up, turn your alarm off, go to your living room, sit up in your bed, sit there in silence for 15 minutes without falling asleep. Right. So you have some silence. You get time to think about, what am I doing today? And, what am I grateful for? Right after that, try to organize your schedule. Right after that, go outside for a walk or sit in your living room and open the blinds and get some sunlight. Stuff is great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's magic, to be honest with you. It makes you super productive, super in sync, super on the right page, and then get your day started.
So we're talking, you listen to podcasts, you manage calendars. How do you go about managing your calendar specifically?
Man, I do something called a power list. I learned that from Andy Frisella, right? Awesome dude. Love his stuff. So I just do a power list. It's like, what are my priorities? What do I have to do? And what can I delegate? So every morning, I lie to you not, 15 to 20, 30 things sometimes come up. And I'm like, okay, these 5 things, if I get them done, I'm going to feel productive today. These other 15 I can delegate. And these other 10, If they get done, cool. If not, I'll push them into tomorrow. You know, so you set the priorities. You make sure that you get those super impactful things done. Look, if you get 3 things done and they made an impact on your business and they made you move forward, it's good.
Yeah.
You know, because some people do busy work and you'd be surprised, man. They do like an 8-hour shift and nothing happens. Literally, they're answering calls, doing meetings, shooting texts, looking at emails. The day's over and you're like, what do you do? Busy work. You know, so that's why you got to really prioritize high impact activities that are going to move your business forward.
Not just working hard, but also working smart.
Exactly.
Interesting. Now, you're in great shape, man.
Thanks, man.
I saw your story the other day. You're like, man, was it a week or a month that you had been to the gym? Was it?
Yeah,
When
for
you
a month.
Yeah, for a month. I'm like, dude, your month off looks like what some people want to be on, and it takes them being consistent 5-6 days a week for a whole year.
Yeah.
So you clearly prioritize your health. Where did this come from?
Look, man, I was skinny, you know, when I was in middle school, freshman year of high school, and I met a buddy, and he took me to the gym, and I saw how he looked, and I was like, yo, that's tough, you know, and I kind of got into it. I got in shape, still was a little skinny, you know, and then I was like, okay, well, it's not just working out. I'm missing something. And that's when the diet came in and the supplements, you know, and by the end of high school, I'd gained like 30 pounds. You know, and then I stayed working out for a little while. I met another friend at the YMCA and he was competing. Biggest Mexican dude I'd ever seen. I was like, this guy's massive, dude.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, bro, like, what do you do? He's like, oh, I'm bodybuilding. And I was like, yo, can I train with you? He's like, yeah, of course, I got you. And dude, we clicked up right away. We became like best friends for 5-6 years, you know, and he got me into like the more sport side of it, you know, not just a hobby. Because it was a hobby before, getting in shape, you know, looking good. Then it was like, all right, like this is actually challenging. It's a sport, you know, and then he competed, won Mr. Delaware. 2 years later, I competed, took second place in a contest down in Baltimore, you know, and that's kind of, you learn the discipline, you learn the sacrifice, and then it's just something that you keep in your life because you feel good, man. When you're competing, doesn't feel that great, you know, but you learn the discipline. It's a mind game, man. It really is. Like not eating something that you really want to eat is challenging, right? And doing it for a long period of time, 12 weeks, 16, 20 weeks sometimes, that's challenging. You know what I mean? And
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. And just, you know, what you learn from that is easy to implement when you kind of turn it down a couple notches, right? It's not like, oh, it's just fish and asparagus. Now it's like, okay, as long as I have some chicken, a little bit of rice and some veggies, like I'm good. And I can have a Coke once in a while, you know, but you learn how to resist those urges very, very well when you compete.
So no McDonald's in your diet?
Nah. Well, honestly, June, dude, I ate Wendy's. So yeah.
How different are the days when you work out versus when you don't?
Dude, night and day. Honestly, when I work out, I feel so good. In June, excuse me. Sorry.
You're good.
Yeah. Now, in June, when I wasn't working out, man, I was really lethargic. I was tired. My mood would change a lot. And now that I'm being more consistent with working out, I feel great.
Yeah.
I'm in a good mood. I'm happy. You know, my days last longer. I can wake up at 5 a.m., go to sleep at 10 or 11, and be productive the entire time.
Yeah.
You know, when you're not eating well, when you're not working out, like 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. rolls around, dude, you want to go to bed. You want to take a shower, lie down, and knock out. You know, it's just your energy levels aren't the same. There's this guy, Dan Martell, and he talks about like your macros, you know, how that is literally the gas for the engine that we have. You know, if you don't give it the right gas, you're not going to get the right results. And like dieting and having a healthy, you know, diet in general, I'm not saying bodybuilding, right? But dude, get your protein, your carbs, your fats, you know, and watch your calories. And that's all you have to do. You know, we like to go, especially Latinos, carne asadas, a bunch of beer, the candy, the pan, like all the bread. You know, like we eat all these things and we're not like conscious of it because we don't grow up conscious of it. Dude, for me as a Mexican, like dieting for the first time was devastating.
Yeah.
Man. It was like, oh, dude. And it was in the summer too.
Yeah.
So I was like, yo, you want to like some carne asada? And I was like, I can't. Give it to me, but nor tortillas. You know what I mean?
Go.
So yeah.
Now, something I heard, I picked up throughout our conversation is you seem to seek mentorship a lot. Whether it was the person who taught you all about the ice cream that you went out to the conference to, whether it's Ricky that you were just recently with, whether it's the guy that you met at the gym, the list goes on. Now, I remember over lunch you said you invest a lot in your development, right? And monetarily, it's not like, I know you said YouTube a lot, but YouTube is free. You specifically spend money on these things.
Yeah.
What drives you to spend the kind? Give us an idea of what your expenses look like in terms of investing in yourself.
$15,000 to $17,000 a month right now.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I spend 6 figures a year on personal development.
What exactly is costing you 16, 17,000, 100, 6 figures a year?
I mean, you don't need
That's
just one
insane.
coach, man. You need a coach for different angles, right? Like honestly, when you get to a level when you really want to take yourself to the next level and really push it, you need a coach for everything, right? It's like the same thing that I was explaining to somebody when it comes to bookkeeping and having a CPA. Your CPA is going to help you tax plan. Your bookkeeper is operations plan. Like, hey, like you can't spend money next week. Your CPA is going to be like, hey, next quarter, you can't spend money, or let's tax plan on how you're not going to have a big tax bill. This guy's going to tell you like, bro, you spent way too much on toilet paper, on, tape, and your payroll needs to go down 10%. Like it's in the moment, right? So like, at least for the business, like you need, it's kind of the same, but it's different because it's different pillars, different parts of it, right? For us as people, yeah, you could say, oh, well, you have a mentor. Yeah, but my mentor for business isn't going to teach me about my health. So I have a coach. He helps me with my nutrition, my training, my diet. Then I have a business coach. You know what I mean? And then I have another coach, for expansion. Hey, how do I get to the next level? You know what I mean? And now I have a manager for my social media because they all know more than I do. And I need to surround myself with those people. And sometimes you have to pay to play. I've gotten free mentorship before. But if you want something consistent that you can count on and you can pick up the phone and call those people and get an answer within a couple minutes, you're going to have to pay for that. You know what I mean?
What do you tell the person that's like, what the hell are they going to teach me? What do they know? Let alone 15, 17, 6 figures a year. I could just go on YouTube. What do you tell them?
I mean, they give you general answers. You don't get specific answers, right? They say, hey, this is how you do marketing. When you talk to somebody that's in that field, they say, this is how you market your business. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's a huge difference.
Massive difference.
That's
And
a huge
until you're
difference.
there and you need that answer in that moment, that's when you know the difference, right? Because you're Googling, you're like, oh, dude, I'm not finding the answer for this. Versus having a coach, you're like, hey, coach, what do I do next? And he's like, all right, bang, bang, bang. This is what you do.
You can't pick up and call Google.
Yeah, there you go.
There you
Google's
go.
not going to give you your answer. ChatGPT won't even give you the exact
And the
answer.
ChatGPT is good.
It's a beast, man. I love it.
I think it just recently became the 4th most used or 5th search engine in the world, like
I
apart
believe
from
it.
like Google and stuff like that. So like
it's going to be number one eventually, man. I love
crazy.
ChatGPT. My team flexes that. Like we really leverage ChatGPT. Yeah.
I want to dive into a little bit of that, but before we do that, actually, I'll save that for a little bit down the road. Tell me about AI. How are you leveraging AI in today's world?
Everything, man. Honestly, scheduling, payroll control, operations, SOP, standard operating procedures, documents, emails, our information, our analytics, because we have a Power BI. It's for analytics for the business. We'll pull spreadsheets and drop it into ChatGPT and be like, hey, I need a plan for the next 6 weeks with this goal in mind. This is what I want to achieve. And it starts breaking everything down because ChatGPT ends up being your assistant when you pay for it because it knows so much about you. I lie to you not. I sit up at night sometimes and I just tell ChatGPT about myself. I tell it a whole story. I'm like, this is what I'm doing with business. These are my plans. This is how I run my schedule. This is how I think about business. This is how literally, man, I like vent to ChatGPT because it gives me some really incredible answers now. And I talk to it about business, my plans to franchise, how I want to expand to 50 locations, like literally everything. So now when I get an answer, it pulls all of that memory and it gives me an answer based off of all of the information I fed it.
That memory, are you ever worried it could be used maybe not in a morally correct way or anything like that?
I hope not. They talk about like, yo, if you're about to die, like clear your browser history, bro, clear my ChatGPT history, Because I ask a lot of questions. Look, it's really creative, man. Like I'll ask personal questions. Like, hey, I'm not feeling that great today. How can I motivate myself? Or I don't know, like emotional things, right? Believe it or not, I did it today. You know, I was like, hey, this is how I feel. Like, what do you think? And it's like pumps you up.
There was a Harvard study that came out, I think, earlier this year, where they analyzed people's uses for AI, and they compared it from last year and this year. And the biggest shift you saw was emotionally driven prompts. Like people were using it almost what appears to be like seeking a human interaction
Yep.
out of AI.
I can
Does
see
that
that.
concern you a little bit?
Not really, man.
Okay.
To be honest with you, no, because
Though you
just
think
has so
that
much
maybe they're
information.
risking the going out there and having like a relationship, like having that conversation with somebody.
okay, see, like I see that.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's concerning. Like if you're using it for interaction and like that's how you're feeding your system to actually have a conversation, you know, in a friendship, that's super concerning. But if it's to answer emotional questions like, hey, I'm not feeling that great, you know, what are things that I can do? Give me 10 ideas how I can motivate myself to find new friends. You know, okay, cool. Like these are the places you're gonna go. These are the conversations you can have. These are icebreakers you can use. Like that's cool.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're sitting there talking to it and like using it as like a like a therapist or a friend, that's
It's Friday night. Your friend said, "Yo, Sal, let's go out for a couple drinks. It's been a long week. We had a great week with the business, new numbers. We're killing it. Let's go out and grab a couple of beers to celebrate." You're like, "Nah, man, I'm gonna stay at home." And you're at home with ChatGPT.
ChatGPT,
Like, what do you say to that person doing
Yeah,
that?
I'm like, yo, you need to get out. You need to get out, bro. Go hang out with your boy.
What is the best prompt that has best served you using any AI?
Honestly, like it's not a specific prompt, it's the way that I word it. It's like, hey, you've been an expert in this field doing these specific tasks for this amount of time, and then I ask the question. If it's a marketing one, hey, you've been a professional marketer for, you know, Fortune 500 companies, you know, specializing in ad management on Facebook. How do I create creative ads that are going to have high conversion rates? What are the call to actions and how can I implement it with my Cricket Wireless business? Like that's a full prompt that I would actually use, but that's how I'd build it out. You know, what's your experience level? What have you worked in? What's my question? How does it relate to my business? You know,
So it makes you really good at asking specific questions.
very, very
Interesting. Okay. Well, what I also want to know is, you did a TEDx talk.
yeah. In
How'd that
Spanish.
happen? In Spanish?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah, so a buddy
Why?
of mine. Yeah. So the TEDx thing was on my vision board since 2015. You know, since I started listening to TEDx talks in 2012, 2013, you know, I've loved them. And then 2015, I put it on my vision board. I was like, that would be amazing. You know, a friend of mine, he helped find the venue for it, and he was going to be one of the speakers. You know, my buddy Pedro, awesome dude. You know, and he's like, hey man, like, what do you think about like doing a TED talk? And I was like, that'd be cool. It was just text. I'd be like, that'd be amazing, dude. It's on my vision board. He's like, no, I'm serious. Like,
What do you think about doing a TED talk? The only caveat here is that you got to do it in Spanish. And I thought about it, dude. I thought about it for like 2 or 3 days. I was like, all right, I can speak Spanish, but I've never done something big like that in Spanish. And believe it or not, it's the first TED talk fully Spanish in the country. It's the only TED talk in the country that I know of to date that's been in only Spanish. Internationally, they've done it.
That's interesting. I didn't even think about that. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Imagine the population. I was surprised too. I was like, why haven't they done one in Texas or in California or in, you know, a highly populated Latino state,
Yeah.
you know, or area?
What did
But
you
we
talk
were the
about?
first ones. Not losing your culture and your Hispanic Latino essence in business.
Bro, the irony in that.
Right?
Everything happened.
I know. And then everything else happened.
What was once you finally finished giving your TED talk,
Yeah.
how did you feel?
Incredible, man.
Yeah.
Incredible. Surreal. Even when I was walking up, like just being on the flyer was so crazy for me. I was like, honestly, if this is it, I'm cool.
you know, but actually being on stage, giving the speech, you know, being under the lights, I blacked out. Like I just kind of gave the speech and then everybody clapped and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I did well.
My man.
You know, and then after it happened, like walking
Down those couple steps, it was incredible. I was like, wow, this is huge. You know, and it wasn't for me, man. It was it was for everyone,
Mhm.
you know, like everybody in my family, because I spoke about my family and my upbringing and my parents and like how proud I am of being Latino and growing up with immigrant parents and, you know, getting to experience my culture in Mexico and having the opportunity to be able to go back and forth, you know, and getting included in a lot of festivities and cultural activities when I was in Mexico by my family and bringing them here and celebrating in the community. Like it was just cool because we
Yeah.
got to like talk about things that are happening here. You know what I mean? Things that happened with a lot of people in a lot of
How long was
places.
this? How long ago was this?
It was last August.
Last
Yeah, about a
August.
year ago.
Last August. Huh. So it's almost like maybe like a full circle moment, you
Yeah,
know?
it really was. It was crazy, right?
Wow. Have you
Yeah.
done any other public speaking since?
Nah, not yet.
Is that something that you're interested in?
For sure. I want to get
Cool.
into that. Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
You have an amazing story. You have so much going on. And you know, I to bring it back, if I may, um, you know, I think if people saw this angle of you with everything that we just covered, like with your mom having working in that business with helping immigrants find housing and all that,
Mhm.
and then also just you come off as someone that's
Yeah.
of service, and but yet that happened.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe people, what is your hope now when people listen to this? What do you hope they take out of it?
Yeah. I hope they get to see that I'm part of the community, man. You know, like I ride for my people. You know, I'm just here to help, you know, and help everyone grow. You know, I'm honestly the first person to turn around and help someone that's coming up and give them a hand. You know, if we're on a ladder, you know, I'm going to help you up that ladder. I'm that person. You know, you call me and you're like, hey, I got a question. I'm the person that picks up. You know what I mean? And that's really just the way that I roll. And that's not just with my staff, it's with anybody. Like you can hit me up on Instagram and ask me a question, I'll answer it. You
Yeah.
know, a phone
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. You know, so I'm just that type of person. I try to help, you know, because look, I pay it forward and I'm paying it back as well. I go both ways. I've gotten so much help in business, just in life from so many people that I want to give back, you know, and hopefully I can give way more back than what I was given, you know, and I appreciate all that help. So that's the type of person that I am, you know. So for people to take that angle was it's confusing, very
What-
confusing.
Is there anything specifically you want to get off your chest other than that to all those people? Because tell me, was there anyone in particular that you didn't expect to hear it from?
Yeah, there was a handful of people,
Okay.
man. People that I grew up with, to be honest with you. People that I did business with, people that I helped, people that I extended a hand to, you know, and I didn't feel resentful. I felt disappointed, you know, like knowing who I am, knowing my character, you know, knowing how much I'm open to give a hand and look out for people. For them to still take that approach instead of reaching out to me was really disappointing, you know, but it's okay. You know, I get it. Look, there was high tension, you know, they were reactionary, you know what I mean? And I get that. But in all honesty, like the biggest thing that I want to say, man, is that like I'm here. I'm here for the people. You know what I mean? And if I'm still here, it's for a reason, you know, and I'm still going to be here. And no matter what, I'm still going to help. You know, that's just the way that I roll.
What should we expect from you in the future?
Yeah, so right now we're on our road to 50. Yeah, 50 locations for Cricket Wireless, you know, and then we're going to jump to 50 locations franchising La Bamba Ice Cream, you know, and you kind of shared what I want to do next, man. I want to start doing more speaking engagements, you know what I mean? English and Spanish. The TED Talk was a challenge and I'm trying to take it on, you know, and I want the opportunity to do one in English because I feel like I can really do something there. You know, and just help people out. You know, the biggest focus for me, like once I'm in a better position, is young Latinos, right? Because until recently, man, honestly, 28, 29, I started finding people doing big things in business in this country that are Latino. Like I told you, I went to the podcast in California with Ismael, with Carlos Reyes and Ricky. And that was incredible. Those are three of the most impactful, influential Latinos that I know in the country, you know, and there's very little of them, you know, so I want to be part of that group and help the same way they are and show everybody else that it's possible because I look at them, dude, and I'm like, dude, I'm not playing big enough, right? There's so much more space. There's so much more I can do, so much more I can share. And I want to be that for other people, you know, for other young guys or girls or whoever it is, you know, like I can do that. Right? Because we have very little examples. And not only that, our communities are so like close knit and the old school mentality is like the crab in a barrel. You know, that's the old school mentality. It's not like that anymore. You know, our generation, we're trying to help each other out, you know, and I want to really share that message and, you know, give a hand just like you, man. You know what I mean? Like, you're giving me the opportunity to be here with you today. And that's amazing. And thank you for sharing the platform.
Dude, it's been an absolute pleasure. I don't even know how long we've been going. Honestly, I feel like we could go all day long. This has been such a great conversation. I feel like I really got what I wanted out of this conversation, to know that angle of you. I consider this a win because I hope that whoever's watching this can see that side of you and maybe think it a little bit through, you know, because it's easy to just jump to conclusions of social media.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
sometimes we need to maybe digest and sit on things before we just react on it. So what closing thought do you have for us, Sal, here?
Honestly, man, link up with people, like-minded people. You know, for the Latinos, we're both Latino. We got to link with each other. We got to help each other out. You know what I mean? I'm not nothing against anybody else, but really, we don't have a big enough community of like-minded individuals in this area or in general, and we need to create that. You know, and it's little cliques, little groups. Eventually, we're just gonna spider web together with each other. But that's my biggest thing. Find as many people as you can that think like you and start helping each other.
Where can people find you?
Social media, the Sal Rodriguez on every platform, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook.
Cool. Well, Sal, this has been awesome, dude. Thank you so much.
Man. I appreciate
it. It's been a freaking great time.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
been awesome.
we have a good future ahead of us in terms of our relationship. I think there's going to be a lot of more things that we work on, maybe sooner than later. But I'd love to have you back on, man.
Yeah, it'd be awesome, man.
Let's do it again. Let's do it again,
Thank you,
my
bro.
man. Till next time. And if you enjoyed this conversation, was there anything specific that you heard from Sal that stuck out to you? Share it in the comments. Let us know. I read through the comments, so I'm very curious to hear what that is for you. And if you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, turn on that notification bell, visit eppodcast.us, and until next time.